I just feel sad to talk about what, Sikhs are going through in India, especially with the movement of Khalistan. Now, I'm not portraying this podcast as a political podcast, and I don't want to go there also. And I'm not saying I'm pro or against Khalistan. You know, I'm just saying the fact that like it's so sad to see how every Sikh is portrayed as Khalistan. I just did a podcast with one of my guests, and he said that if you see like any Sikh on the streets, people will call them Khalistani. Like our portrayal of Sikhs in India is like it's very bad.
Yeah, and that perception also came through the whole Khalistan movement and what's happening with Canada-India affairs right now. And I am also really neutral on the whole topic because I don't want to take one side. And that's a one hard thing being a journalist because you have to report and you have to stay neutral on both grounds. And in general too, like even like if you ask my opinion, I'm neutral about it because I have mixed feelings about the whole situation. But one biggest thing I do agree a lot of times what happens is if you're just walking down the street and if you have a turban on, especially in India, you'll be perceived as a Khalistani. And it's not like it's more happening to the people who wear a damala.
Why is that?
And that's also a fact because they perceive to be more like into the whole movement. And that's what India is trying to portray too. And a lot of the Indian media also try to portray that. But at the same time, it's also the whole movement. If you think about it, I still know if it's complicated in its own way, where a lot of times the perception is built through media, and it is just sticking around the way it is. You know what I mean?
I think that's the one of the big things that has impacted Sikh community is the media. Um,
Yeah.
I think once the media portrays them as a neutral people, right? In every community you see there's good and bad, right? But then you portraying
Yeah.
only the bad part of it, the only the bad aspect of it's just giving the false information to the country itself, the people of the country itself. And I think that is a very wrong and it shouldn't be like that.
And I think that's one challenge I could talk about right now. There's no media outlet out there that's neutral. Because if you look at the funding that media gets from the government, for example, or from other spots, they're never neutral. They always have agenda, and they all say. And if you think about the media in general, like mainstream media, it's a business of its own. They want to run that business, and wherever they get the money, they will follow the money over the story for sometimes. And that's the perception how things works in the media nowadays.
And how do you find a truth then?
Like who like how like let's say the mainstream media talking about the whole six issue, like the India Pakistan the Khalistan issue right now, but why weren't they talking about like 5 years ago or like 3 years ago about this?
Yeah.
Because there's some current affairs happening right now. Currently something happened, that's why they're talking about it, and it is trending on their sites. They're getting a lot of clicks on it. That's why they're talking about it. And same thing goes with the whole Ukraine Russia issue. The only reason it's getting a lot of coverage is because they're getting a lot of demand for the topic to be covered. And then you could just compare it back to like Afghanistan, how that only got like 2 days or 3 days or a week of coverage here in Canada because nobody cares about it that much. It's not like nobody cares about it in Canada. It was like it didn't have that high of a clickbait or that high of clicks or that high of interest for the media to cover.
And as usual, the regular person suffers the pain of it.
I know like North America in general, we're like a melting pot and we have like a multicultural communities. But at the same time, if you look at the supervising roles of the media organizations out there, it's all white men, or like it's all white people for the most part. We don't have a community representative from each of the communities there that could explain them what's happening. And that's a big reason why the false information is out there.
And is that why you wanted to come to journalism?
Yeah, that was one of the reasons. But at the same time, high school, I've enjoyed doing photography. I've been enjoying doing media things, um, talking about a lot of the issues that are not being covered. We had some organizations, like Sikh organizations here, um, who needed coverage, but at the same time, mainstream media was not covering them until like recently now. So those kind of stories not being covered was one of the reasons, but at the same time, me being a Sikh doesn't stop me from covering other communities. You know, um, I I also want to cover other current affairs. So when the Black Lives Matter movements was happening, I want to cover that. I don't want to stop just representing my community. I want to kind of represent all the marginalized communities or the minorities, and that's where the complication comes in, because how unique my unique my perspective is, or unique my writing is. A lot of times, if you go into media, being from a specific background, you are a diversity hire, either, or you're just made for covering that specific community. You don't have the open option of covering other communities. You know what I mean?
And you feel like that pressure.
And that's also a big issue nowadays. Yeah, and that happens every day. Like sometimes I pitch a story about something else, like out of the community, and my editor's like, "Nope, that's not happening."